guys, I'm going to do one more lesson before I head home for the night. Okay, so we're going to do equivalent fractions and decimals, and that is lesson 9.3, page 507. And your assignment will be 511. Okay, here we go. Our essential question says, how can you record tenths and hundredths as fractions and decimals? Alright, so here we go. Okay, Daniel spent a day hiking through a wildlife preserve. During the first hour of the hike, he drank 6/10 liter of water. How many hundredths of a liter did he drink? Underline what you need to find first. We're going to do that. We need to find how many hundredths of a liter did he drink, and how can you represent hundredths? Well, we've learned two ways to represent hundredths: fractions and decimals. So fractions by fraction or decimal. Okay. So it says we know that he drank 6/10 of a liter of water, so we're going to start by shading 6/10 on our first model here. So let's do green. All right, let's see if this works. I've been having some trouble with this working right, so green is not going to cooperate. Let's do orange. Okay. We will just do this. 6/10. So I'm going to shade 6 of these tenth size parts. And do that real fast. Okay, so that's 6/10. Now we're going to shade the same amount over here. Now it's going to work. So when we shade the same amount on this model that is broken up into hundredths, how many of those did we shade? Well, let's figure that out. So we started with 6/10, and on our second model, it's broken up, those tenths are broken up into hundredths. So what do you have to multiply 10 times to get 100? Well, each one of these tenths are broken up into 10 pieces. So we multiply 10 times 10 gives us 100. Remember my saying, if you do it to the bottom, it's just like math class. Mrs. Peterson dropping stuff. If you do it to the bottom, you do it to the top. So we're going to multiply by 10 on top also. So 6 times 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 hundredths. So 6/10 is the same as 60 hundredths. Now we're going to do it as a decimal. So we're going to first write 6/10 as a decimal. And we're going to write a 0.6. And now the only difference, this is what I showed you guys a little bit in the last video. So we did 6/10 equals 60 hundredths. 6/10 equals, the only difference between these numbers on this side and these numbers right here is that these have an extra 0. And so we do the same thing over here. Add another 0. Pretty cool. So 6/10 is the same as 60 hundredths. So Daniel drank 60 hundredths or 60 hundredths liter of water. Explain why 6/10 is equivalent to 60 hundredths. Okay. 6/10 and 60 hundredths. Well, because 6/10 multiplied by 10 over 10 is 60 hundredths. So 6/10 multiplied by 10 over 10 equals 60 hundredths. 6/10 is equivalent to 60 hundredths because 60 and 100 are both 10 times as many as 6 and 10. In other words, if you add a 0 here and add a 0 here, it's the same thing as this. Or if you take this 0 off and this 0 off, it becomes 6/10. So if we do the same thing on the top and bottom, then it means it's an equivalent fraction. Okay. Jasmine collected 30 hundredths liter of water in a jar during a rainstorm. How many tenths of a liter did she collect? So equivalent decimals are decimals that name the same amount. You can write 30 hundredths as a decimal that names tenths. So, let's see here. So we start with 30 hundredths. There are really no hundredths there, right? Since it's 0. So 30 hundredths is equivalent to 3/10. And, whoops, sorry, we're going to do to 3/10. And so it's just like on fractions, you can add those zeros. If you do it to the top and bottom, you can add a 0 here or take a 0 away here. So 3/10 and 30 hundredths are the same because if we look at this, that's 3/10, right? But if we count them out individually, there's 30 out of the whole, which is 100. Okay. Write 30 hundredths is a fraction with a denominator of 10. So 30 hundredths is 30 hundredths. 30 hundredths written as a fraction is 30 over 100. To write 30 hundredths as an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 10, so you're going to ask yourself, what do I divide 100 by to get 10? Well, we know 10 times 10 is 100, so 100 divided by 10 is 10. And then 30 divided by 10 is 3. So Jasmine collected 3/10 or 3/10 liter of water. Okay? Write 4/10 as hundredths. So to get from 10 to 100, we multiply by 10. If we do it to the bottom, we do it to the top. 4 times 10 is 40. So the fraction would be 40 over 100. And then if we start with 4/10, all we have to do to make it hundredths is add that 0 there. So now we read it as 40 hundredths. Just like with the fraction, you add a 0 to the top and bottom to make it hundredths. With the decimal, you add a 0 to the hundredths place. Okay, I think this is our last page together. Okay, write the number as hundredths in fraction form and decimal form. Okay, so we start with 7/10. To get to 100, we multiply by 10. If we do it to the bottom, we do it to the top, so that's 70 hundredths. And then to write 70 hundredths as a decimal, there's 0 wholes, 7 in the tenths place, and then to be able to say hundredths, we've got to stick that 0 in the hundredths place, so 70 hundredths. So 5/10 is written as 5/10, but they want us to write it as hundredths. So that means we stick another 0 on the top and bottom, and then 0.50 or 50 hundredths. And then 3/10, again, we multiply the top and bottom by 10 and get 30 hundredths. So 30 over 100, which is the same thing as 30 hundredths. Okay, now they're going to want us to write the number as tenths. So to write in fraction form and decimal form. So to write 40 hundredths as tenths, we just take off that 0. So 4/10. And then of course in fraction form it's just 4 over 10 or 4/10. When you have a fraction form, you're going to take the 0 off the top and bottom, which is the same thing as dividing the top and bottom by 10. That gives us 8/10 or 8/10. And then again, we get rid of the top and bottom 0, and that gives us 2/10 or 2/10. Alright, so here's the on your own part. You can pause the video now and do those problems and then resume and see if you got them right. Okay, read the directions carefully, and just like we've been doing, most of these problems are going to have you write it in fraction and decimal form. Okay, so I don't have coronavirus, I just have a cough. I mean, not a cough, allergies. Okay. Write the number as hundredths in fraction form and decimal form. So we want hundredths in fraction form and decimal form. So right now they have it in tenths, so that's the same thing as 80 hundredths, and to write that in decimal form, you just make sure you've got that 0 in the hundredths place. 2/10 becomes 20 hundredths or 0.20, 20 hundredths. And they've given us this in decimal form. So we are going to stick our 0 there, making it into the hundredths place. And then write 1/10 is what we had originally, and then put your zeros on top and bottom. So 0.10. Write the number as tenths in fraction form and decimal form. So we're doing tenths this time. So we've got to get rid of these zeros on top and bottom. That gives us 6/10. We write that as 0.6. Get rid of those zeros and that gives us 9/10 or 9/10. And get rid of this 0. That gives us 7/10 or 7/10. Alright, and the last 3, write the number as an equivalent mixed number with hundredths. So all you have to do is stick a 0 on top and bottom. And that gives us 1 and 40 hundredths. Again, 0 on top and bottom. That gives us 3 and 50 hundredths. And then 0 on top and bottom, 2 and 90 hundredths. We just leave the whole number alone when we are finding an equivalent fraction. Okay, it's kind of blurry. It'll clear up in just a second. I hope you guys are staying well and are having fun and getting some fresh air. And this is the last video I'm recording tonight. It's Sunday night. You guys will be getting your math books tomorrow, and then you'll be able to do these lessons with me on the video, and then do your assignments. And when it's time to return your packet on May 1st, you can tear out the pages, the assignment pages, and just bring those back. So I hope you're doing well. I'll see you soon.